from the Post Millennial. El Paso port of entry shuts down as Trump takes office. We also have this from NBC News. Trump shuts down immigration app, dashing migrants' hopes of entering the U.S. One of the viral stories that's been going around is an image of a video of a woman who's breaking down in tears because she will now not be allowed into the United States. There was a journalist who posted this, but it's always something like that. There's no video of the cartel members with rifles running away. The drug traffickers or the child traffickers. It's always going to be the humanitarian crisis. And there's a meme where it's a child crying and a person saying, "Oh no, the child's crying, quick, burn the Constitution." The joke being when the press comes out with this sad sympathy story, or even someone like Ocasio-Cortez says these poor asylum seekers, it's ignoring the other side of that coin, which is the evil we are trying to stop. So I would say I largely know the opinions. I could guess everybody here that their opinions are largely going to be in favor of this. But Congressman Khanna, I'm curious what you think about the shutdown of the border and the immigration app.
Look, there's no doubt that we needed a more secure border, and I'm not going to defend that the process was messed up and that people were coming here without the legal way. I mean, my parents came as immigrants; they came legally. That my father came to study at University of Michigan and then got a green card, and my mom then they became citizens. That's the way you come to America, and the Democratic Party does need to be clear about that. And it's factual that a lot of people came in an illegal way under the Biden presidency. That said, I believe that this country is also a humane country, and that when people are coming with legitimate cases, either of asylum or, in my view, if they want to come and work here and then and make money here and send it back to their families, and they or go back to their families, I think there should be a process for that. Or if they're fleeing for persecution, and I don't think just shutting it down is the right way. By the way, if you shut it down in a port of entry, they're probably more likely to come in a non-port of entry way. So it's an issue that we need a secure border, but I still believe that there needs to be a humanity to allowing asylum. So I don't support sort of a blanket, we're just going to shut it down.
Tyler, are you basically just ban all immigration?
No. I mean, so we talk, and I don't want to go too down this road, but we talk a little bit about race. And I like to think, I'm descended from two groups that were not considered white until very recently, Irish and Belarusian Jewish. So my own ancestry is complicated, and you talk about redlining, you talk about the history of racism. Those things are real. I think today we're being told that racism is something simple, binary, white bad, black good, and it's a lot more complicated. But when it comes to the border, I think we need to have a law that applies equally to everyone. And right now, we have illegal aliens who are being told, you can enter the country, you can abuse the system. I grew up in Colorado. Two of my classmates, when I was growing up, were Mexican legal immigrants who went through the process. And they're the ones I think are most offended, most harmed by this illegal immigration crisis, besides the people, obviously, like Laken Riley, who lost her life. And I mean, I've really enjoyed our conversation, Ro. I see that you voted against the Laken Riley Act.
I'm happy to explain, yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to hear. So
my view is, of course, I have deep sympathy and genuine sympathy for the family of Laken Riley. And my view of it is, I have deep sympathy for the family of Laken Riley. My view of it is that if there is someone who's convicted of a violent crime or a sex crime, they should be deported. In fact, I just voted for Mesa's H.R. 30 that says if you're convicted of a sexual offense, you should be deported. The way the Laken Riley Act was worded is it said if you're arrested, you should be deported. And I'm a due process person. I mean, we gave the Nazis trials because we believed in the rule of law. I just think people here should have the rule of law. Now, people say, okay, if they came across in an undocumented way, they're already illegal. But I don't have the view and here I may just disagree. I don't have the view that every single person who came here in an undocumented way should have mass deportation of 11 million. I do have the view that if you're convicted of a violent offense or a sex offense, that you should be deported.
Is that ultimately, and I don't want to misrepresent your argument here, I guess wait until they commit a crime against an American citizen and then deport them after they've committed a violent crime?
No.
Wouldn't you send them to jail? Why would you deport them?
Well, you would send them to jail and then deport them in terms of the extradition.
But wait for them to commit a crime and then do something?
Well, I think, first of all, the statistics show that immigrants commit statistically less crimes than those of us like me.
But all of them could be
crime, real quick, guys, real quick. I pulled the bill up. It's for unlawfully present in the United States. So this is not just immigrants in general. It's any unlawfully present individual in the United States who has been arrested for burglary, theft, larceny, or shoplifting must be detained by the Department of Homeland Security.
It says under this bill, DHS must detain the individual who, 1, has unlawfully present in the United States or does not possess necessary documents when applying for admission, or 2, has been charged with, arrested for, convicted for, or admits to having committed acts that constitute essential elements of burglary, theft, larceny, and shoplifting.
That's interesting. I actually agree with Rep. Khanna here because it says if you were to separate sections 1 and 2, and this is just a summary, so I'd have to go through it, but under the summary, you could read it as, under this bill, DHS must detain an individual who has been charged with, arrested for, convicted of, or admits to having committed acts that constitute essential elements of burglary, theft, larceny, or shoplifting. That could apply to Americans. I mean, again, it's just a summary, so I don't know what they're. I think the spirit of the act.
I think they're, in fairness to the authors, I think they are talking about those who are undocumented who
is it illegal or no?
But that would mean a 100% crime rate.
People that are in the country illegally?
No, well, so what their argument is this. So my view is like, okay, you got a DACA kid, hypothetically, who's someone basically who's undocumented because their parents came here, grew up here. They go out, they have a DUI, they commit shoplifting. If they're arrested at the moment of arrest, they could be deported. And my view is it has to be a violent crime or a sex offense that you're convicted of. The response is, well, the crime is entering the United States. Shouldn't everyone be deported? And that is Donald Trump's position. That's Tom Hammon's position. Let's deport 11 million folks. And my view is that the vast majority of those 11 million undocumented are people like someone in my district who is a dental hygienist. She's been here 25 years. Her daughter is studying for med school in Southern California. She drives down every day and once a month and drives back the same day because she can't afford a hotel because she's underpaid as a dental hygienist. And I want a person like that not to be deported. I think there should be a path to citizenship. And that's the genuine difference.
But how do we make the system fair? You know, you talk about paths to citizenship. And I think a lot of Americans' heartstrings are pulled by these people. And to some degree, rightly so. But what you have is a massive amount of illegal aliens in this country who are not here legally. We have a system that's complicated that allows people to come here legally, which we all, I think most of us support. I mean, there's a growing faction on the right who opposes all immigration,
right,
period. I'm not part of that group. I think immigration, when it is rightly, tailored and welcomes the right people who actually love this country and want to follow our laws. And the number one way that if somebody loves this country and wants to follow our laws or doesn't is if they're following the law when they first enter the country.
I do have a correction.
Yeah.
I did misread it. It's and, not or. Meaning they have to be unlawfully present and. So
Correct.
it's both criteria. That was my mistake.
Okay.
But what I'd love to have, so I think there are two problems we have with the border, right? First is the open border, the policies that Trump is, rightly reenacting after Biden got rid of them immediately. He was following a lot of these groups where you say 200 organizations, ACLU, Center for American Progress, that wanted to transform the Department of Homeland Security into a welcome mat for illegal aliens versus actually applying the law fairly and evenly so that we can have legal immigrants and we can. So one of the problems with this issue is that always the issue of, a path to citizenship is brought up. Amnesty is brought up. And that usually kills debate among Republicans, because what we saw in the 1980s was that amnesty was the first thing that got through, and then the rest that was promised in the law didn't get enacted. And what we've seen the right shoved aside on this, and the concerns about illegal immigration dismissed as if they don't really matter.
Well, I hear that. And first, I just want to say on the ACLU and Center for American Progress, those groups are in my view, constructive. I'm not saying I agree with all their policy, but I didn't want people to think that I was saying that they're one of the groups that don't matter, because I do work with them on civil liberties issues and policy. But your broader point is, I think that if you have my view, that America is going to become the first truly cohesive multiracial democracy in the world, that no other nation has ever done this, and this is something truly remarkable about America. I don't think having an influx of those who are undocumented coming to America is helping that goal. I think it has created resentment. I think it has created anger. And so if you're telling me that we need to do a better job of securing the border and having a process and ensuring Americans, who I believe, given my own upbringing in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, in a 99% white community when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, I believe Americans are fundamentally decent. I think that it's a kind country. I think it's a country that at its core is one that embraces people today. And so if we want that, I think we have to get a fix on the border. But you're right that always gets caught up, because we Democrats say we want to fix the border, but we also want a path to citizenship and a place for asylum. The Republicans say, no, we don't want that part. You guys aren't serious about a border fix. My view is maybe there's going to be, we had Biden, now we're going to have Trump. I think he may overreach the other way, and maybe eventually we're going to get a path forward on this where 80% of Americans are.
Yeah, I really feel like a lot of Americans have shifted on this issue just because of how out of control it was the last 4 years. I mean, I'll talk to people that are pretty moderate that are just like almost saying, hey, just close down everything. We need a 5-year pause because this is out of control. That was the worst border crisis in American history. You have people that enter the country, they're unvetted, they just cruise on in, and we have no clue who they are. You end up with situations where Americans get murdered. And that's why a lot of people are up in arms when they hear stuff like this, where it's like, oh, hey, the thing is, we don't want to enforce the laws, the position. But we will enforce the law once somebody's inevitably murdered. Yeah, and then we'll deport them, even though we're not actually going to deport them. We're going to put them in jail. And then taxpayers have to pay for them to be in prison for the rest of their life.
It's fair to say that the past 4 years have really done a lot to I guess maybe radicalize the average American. Because before the Biden administration, I don't think that 70% of Americans were okay with deporting.
No.
And now
Biden was winning by 15 points on immigration against Donald Trump in 2020.
Yeah,
and we were losing by like 25 points.
And they absolutely annihilated the trust the American people have in the Democrats. There's no reason for the American people to say, yes, we believe the Democrats are going to be responsible when it comes to the border. Not just because of the fact that they have, rescinded all of Donald Trump's effective executive orders, like remain in Mexico and
reinstating catch and release.
Exactly. Those kind of things were looked at positively by the American people. And now it's gotten to the point where, like I said, 70% of the American people are okay with things that would have been almost shocking to most people 10 years ago. The idea of rounding up people, the idea of deporting people like that, what used to be really, really...
Majority of Hispanic Americans as well.
Yeah, it used to be something that would make your average American blanch, and now they're like, build the wall and just go and round them up. I'm down.
When you welcome 11 million people, that's what happens. You don't have a choice.
We have to have zero tolerance for illegal immigration. Because we have people who are good, that we want to come to this country, who want to raise families and go to school, who are trying desperately to apply the legal way. Mm-hmm. And then what they end up seeing. So I actually know people who were trying to flee Ukraine, for instance. And they said, we can't get to the United States. They won't let us in. And they were like, I literally said, should I just fly to Mexico? Because they let everybody just walk in. Mm-hmm. They ended up going to some Baltic countries, and they ended up fleeing in some other direction. When you allow people, Chinese nationals, from African nations, fly to Brazil and then come up to the southern border, and then we as a country say, but we have this person who's here illegally, who's a good worker, we're telling everybody who's trying to do the right thing that they don't matter.
But then we have to create pathways, in my view, for people to be able to do that legally. I mean, what George W. Bush was trying to do, he was saying that, you can come here, you can work, you can get paid a higher wage, not be exploited like some are and abused on an H-1B or abused because of your immigration status. And then many of those folks would go back. I mean, look, there are a lot of people, obviously, who want to come to America for economic reasons. Some of them are now coming illegally. And there is a way to have folks come legally in a way that's going to benefit our economy, our community, and also be a legal process.
But you have to punish them, otherwise you send the message.
Well, let's take a look at the Bay Area specifically, where and correct me if I'm wrong, because you would know this better than me. But the story was that they were no longer enforcing shoplifting under a certain number.
$900 was it?
And then we saw a wave of closures of stores. Walgreens just issued a statement
Funny
saying
how that happened.
we had to lock up all of our merchandise, which resulted in even worse sales and worse shrink. So
I think that's changing. I mean, we've had 2 new mayors come in, Matt Mahan in San Jose, Dan Lurie in San Francisco, and they both ran on common sense public safety. But
so the point is, when you say, if you break the law, there's a tolerance we have for the crime skyrockets to the point where the city panics. You get new politicians, the corporations start shutting down. That's no different for immigration. If you say there's a certain degree of illegal immigration we will tolerate and protect, it's going to skyrocket, and then you're going to get the Donald Trump backlash.
I imagine it's fair to say that there are probably a significantly fewer amount of people that decided to leave for the southern border today than there were 6 weeks ago.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.